Hi guys, Jess here, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful March Madness scrapping session. I hope you are enjoying these so far. Please pop on over to the description box and check out my dear friend Laura Alberts, who is joining me on this even day of the month. So I have been playing around with the Distress Oxide ink refills. I don't actually have any Distress Oxide ink stamps. I just have 3 refill bottles, and I was just having a little bit of a fiddle around with those to see what I could create using those. And I just applied a lot of water to my page and mixed the ink refill with some water and just sort of splashed it on with a brush and came up with this crazy background. I then splattered even more water from my fingertips straight onto the page and left that to dry. Now, unfortunately, I didn't record the process because I thought at the time I was just playing and that I'd end up really not using these backgrounds, but it seemed like a bit of a waste. So I actually have a couple of these backgrounds that I am going to utilize in a few of my March layouts that I don't have process videos for, but I will absolutely make sure I include some process videos for creating these watercolor layouts, not watercolor, ink layouts as well. This particular cut file called Market Day, I created myself in the Silhouette store using just the Silhouette fonts, one of the fonts in my computer, and then just a few random clip art images of arty crafty type things. So a camera, pair of scissors, a glue bottle, and a notepad and paper, just to signify the day that my best friend and I ran a market stall. So I decided the background was just a little bit full on with everything else that was going on. So I've actually got my fake vellum that I'm going to put on top there, which is A4 size. So I need 2 of those, and it's actually just a pad of tracing paper. So I'm going to put 2 pieces of my fake vellum together and just try and hide the seam as best I can. And then I'm going to stick everything to that. So I'm actually going to I'm working off the vellum, not off the white backing paper. I will then adhere the vellum with a couple of little glue dots. I was going to not use glue dots at all, but when I went to take the photos, I noticed that the vellum was curling up at the corners, so I actually ended up putting just 4 glue dots in each corner of the page. But I am racing ahead of what is actually currently happening on the paper. So I didn't have very much foam tape left, and I really wanted to save it. So I just got my glitter foam that comes in like A5 sheets and cut off a chunk of that because I've got plenty, and just used a double-sided tape to adhere that onto my cut file, which I'm now then using more double-sided tape to adhere it onto my vellum. So you could see there I was working really hard to try and have the join as perfect as I could. I didn't want it to be overlapping and then have, a darker section of vellum, but I didn't want it to be not touching so that there was a gap between the vellum. So I pretty much got that as perfect as I could, and I'm ready to keep going with my layout. So I am just backing my photos, just matting those on. They were already matted to white, and then I'm matting them with a little bit of pattern paper out of the collection. Well, no, they weren't already matted to white. I apologize. I just matted them to white, and now I'm matting them to a little bit of pattern paper. It's the same pattern that is on the handle of the scissors. So there's not much of this pattern happening in the layout, but the colors are definitely there. The Market Day, the words there that are being used, they were, if you were familiar with the collection, they were like the rainbow, almost like rainbow banners or rainbow pennants that had words written across each one. So there's definitely words written on the cut file that says market day. It's probably most clear in the light green section of the E. But in general, it doesn't stand out too much. There's so much more going on in the page that your eye doesn't tend to linger on the fact that there is writing inside the market day cut file. And I just really liked that rainbow effect, that I really wanted to try and keep that happening. So my photos there's a picture of me standing behind our stall. Our stall consists of handmade polymer clay earrings that my friend made, and handmade gift cards that were 99.9% made by Katie, and then a very small percentage made by me. Very small percentage. And we had a really great day. It was an all-day market, so we got there at probably about 8 a.m. and finished up at about 3. But it was a really nice day. I really enjoyed it. We want to try and do another one, but it's just so tricky to find the time. So you can see here that I am busy popping some clusters around my photo. I've got one little cluster on the bottom left of my photo. Lots of a little word phrase there, and then my friend's tiny word, and then the puffy heart. They are Amy Tangerine hearts. And then just a tiny little cluster to the right hand side of that photo. I cut that piece of ephemera in half, and I have mirrored that cluster up on this top photo now. As you can see, I've got that same little reef piece that I'm going to put on. So just adhering down my photo. I was just having a play there with my bits and pieces. Never works out exactly how you had it in your head. So everything sort of moved a little bit, and the join in my paper vellum is a little bit more obvious. So I'm just covering that a little bit more differently than I had originally planned, but that's okay. I just really wanted to make sure that join wasn't really noticeable. You can't really see it on the right hand side, but on the left hand side there, maybe the paper was a bit curly, or because there's a photo there that's already drawing your eye up to that side. I just felt that join was more obvious. I just wanted to make sure that was covered. Love that big floral piece, so I'm super excited that I got that onto the page, and it doesn't look random to have one piece of floral on there. And yeah, I'm almost done. So once I adhere these last two, I'm going to flip over the entire piece of vellum that's now relatively all stuck together, and I'm going to put double-sided tape on all of the big sections where you're not going to see that through the vellum. So I'll just flip it over in just a second. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I forgot about this. I decided I needed a doodly border, so I'm just trying out my 2 different black textures because I knew I didn't have a nice black pen. And I'm deliberately drawing in a section of the paper that's going to be covered by a photograph, just to see what it looks like. And then I was just checking if I wanted to draw straight onto the paper, or if I wanted to draw straight onto the vellum, what look I liked best. And I decided I wanted to draw straight onto the paper and then put the vellum on top and sort of mute that down a little bit, just like I'd done with the watercolor. I thought that looked best. Drawing straight onto the vellum was just a little bit too bright against the way everything else had been created. So just scribble on those 2 lines there, and then the vellum is going to sit on top. And now I'm going to flip it over and add double-sided tape. So all basically where you can see there's like the yellow, or where my photos are, I'm going to put double-sided tape because I know you won't see that double-sided tape through the vellum. And as I mentioned earlier, I was originally going to leave it with just that much adhered to the page, but when I went outside to take photos in the sunshine, I noticed that the vellum had started curling up. Now, I still could have just let it be, because putting it into the page protector and then closing it in my album certainly would have flattened it out. But it was actually really difficult to take nice photos without the vellum being all curly. So that's why I put on some glue dots. So you probably will be able to see those in the photo, but as we know, the whole purpose of glue dots is for them to be as invisible as possible. So just sticking that down now. Then I will trim it off with my scissors, and my layout will be almost finished. So I'm just going to cut that down. Trim. Then I'm actually going to put the date on. I always put the date on my family album layouts, but I usually do it after I've taken my photos and things like that. But for whatever reason, I did it before this time. So I always put the date down in the bottom right hand corner on all of my 2019 family album, but I don't do any journaling on these. They have an accompanying Project Life page with all the journaling, so generally for the week it sort of says already what's happening on the 12 by 12. But I do journaling in my 2020 album, and I do journaling in my son's first year's album. So just splashing on a bit of Heidi Shine and we are done. So thank you again for joining me on a March Madness layout. Remember to check the description box so you can pop over to Laura's layout as well. I hope you are enjoying our series for March this March, our first time doing this layout every day. Thank you so much, and I will catch you again on an even day. All right, bye everyone.